This was hilarious. She writes this. And there's no doubt in my mind that there are a tangle of financial relationships between Trump and his operation with Russian money, Clinton said, asserting that she is also confident the Trump campaign worked really hard to hide their connections with Russians. All right. Well, I actually think there is probably a connection between Trump and Russia in terms of financial dealings, real estate dealings, maybe even the Russian mafia. Cenk's done videos on this. I actually agree with him on that. Where I have disagreed is the proof of Russian hacking and all this stuff. But is there financial dealings between Trump and Russia? You'd have to live under a rock if you don't believe that. But what's funny about this, she says, and there's no doubt in my mind that there are a tangle of financial relationships between Trump and his operation with Russian money. I think Hillary Clinton's kind of leaving out the fact there that her husband and her got millions and millions and millions of dollars after approving a uranium deal that helped the Russian government. Oh, I missed that part in the book. Did you read that part in the book? I didn't read that part. So, if you don't know the history, I'll just read you quick from the New York Times. The headline of this was, "Cash flowed to Clinton Foundation amid Russian uranium deal." It always comes down to cash to the Clinton Foundation, doesn't it? So, the untold story behind the story is one that involves not just the Russian president, but also a former American president and a woman who would like to be the next one. This was written before the election. At the heart of the tale are several men, leaders of the Canadian mining industry, who have been major donors to the charitable endeavors of former President Bill Clinton and his family. Members of that group built, financed, and eventually sold off to the Russians a company that would become known as Uranium One. Beyond mines in Kazakhstan that are among the most lucrative in the world, the sale gave the Russians control of 1/5 of all uranium production capacity in the United States. Since uranium is considered a strategic asset with implications for national security, the deal had to be approved by a committee composed of representatives from a number of United States government agencies. Among the agencies that eventually signed off was the State Department, then headed by Mr. Clinton's wife, Hillary Clinton. As the Russians gradually assumed control of Uranium One in 3 separate transactions from 2009 to 2013, Canadian records show a flow of cash made its way to the Clinton Foundation. Ooh, what a coinky-dink. What a coinky-dink. If any Germans are out there could tell me how to say coinky-dink in German, I'd appreciate it. So, between 2009 and 2013, that would be when Hillary Clinton was Secretary of State, there was a lot of money that went to the Clinton Foundation. Uranium One's chairman used his family foundation to make 4 donations totaling $2.35 million. Those contributions were not publicly disclosed by the Clintons, despite an agreement Mrs. Clinton had struck with the Obama White House to publicly identify all donors. Other people with ties to the company made donations as well. That's interesting. That's interesting that Hillary Clinton, as Secretary of State, had a deal that any contributions between the Clinton Foundation and foreign governments, anything like that, would be disclosed, but this one was not. Why wouldn't this one be disclosed? Maybe because Hillary Clinton wanted to have her cake and eat it too. Take millions of dollars from Russians, other Saudi Arabia, other countries, and then run for president and not be called out on it. And shortly after the Russians announced their intention to acquire a majority stake in Uranium One, Mr. Clinton received $500,000 for a Moscow speech from a Russian investment bank with links to the Kremlin that was promoting Uranium One stock. Oh, shall I say, collusion between Hillary Clinton and the Russian government? Maybe I'll go from Germany to Russia to look into this collusion. What do you think? You want me to go to Russia? Get my burqa? So, all you have here, Hillary Clinton calling out Donald Trump in her book about, having shady ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. I actually think she's probably right. I do think Trump has financial dealings with Russia. It came out that they were trying to have a Trump Tower in Moscow during the election. They were trying to develop that. So, you'd be living under a rock to think Trump doesn't have some type of deals with Russia, and that's why he won't call out Russia. That's one thing, and that's fine to acknowledge that. But Hillary Clinton, living in this land of contradictions, hypocrisy, and Clintonite contamination, which I dubbed that phrase, Clintonite contamination. It's in Chapter 3. Read it. So She and her husband made millions and millions of dollars off of approving a very big uranium deal. By the way, uranium used for nuclear warheads and nuclear missiles. So it's a national security threat, giving Russia all that uranium. But let's not worry about national security. There's money to be made. She didn't include that in the book. So, as you see, Hillary Clinton's land of alternative facts is out today. As I'll tell you one more time, I decided to release my chapter on Hillary Clinton the same day because I want to, in real time, debunk a lot of the nonsense she's spewing. She'll blame Bernie Sanders till she dies. She'll blame Russia. She'll blame the mailman. She'll blame everybody but herself. And when you say in one breath, I take accountability, but then you have a whole book blaming everybody else, are you really taking accountability? You know what? Maybe Hillary Clinton should have written about, you know what? There was an old way of doing things in politics that I was a part of, which was scratching the back of wealthy plutocrats and then giving them favors, but those days are over, and I am happy we are now moving over to the people's voice and someone like Bernie Sanders. But she'll never do that. And speaking of Bernie Sanders, I just want to read you this, which I think is encouraging. Politico wrote, "Liberals dominate Democrats' 2020 jockeying. The lion's share of activity among potential presidential hopefuls so far is on the progressive end of the Democratic spectrum. Bernie Sanders showed in 2016 that an unabashed liberal with a fervent following could reach the cusp of the Democratic nomination. Now a slew of progressive Democrats are following his lead. More than 2 years before the next presidential primaries, roughly a dozen potential candidates pushing liberal economic agendas are making initial moves in preparation for a run. Sanders himself has visited early voting states. Fellow senators, including Elizabeth Warren of Massachusetts and Jeff Merkley of Oregon, have been meeting with activists. And governors such as Montana's Steve Bullock are hiring political teams. Even a handful of mayors have started getting into the action." So Bernie, who got 13 million votes and is now the most popular politician in America because he's progressive and he's proposing progressive legislation that will help all of us and not just the rich, other people are following his lead. So while Hillary Clinton's living in fairyland, talking about, the Russians and Bernie and the mailman and this person and that group, Bernie Sanders is actually getting shit done. Wait, TYT politics, what a coincidence. Was für ein unglaublicher Zufall. Was für ein unglaublicher Zufall. How's that? I bet my pronunciation's not so German. Kind of that Jewish, dorky, white guy spin on the German language. But I'm trying. I'm trying to learn some German. And so far, the country's been beautiful, and the people have been very nice to me, so it's been lovely.